Hello and welcome to Giant Mess, a super sloppy sports and entertainment podcast that covers Giants football, Mets baseball, movies, and television. I'm your host, the real cinch, Neal Lynch. On today's episode, we're going to be reviewing, recapping, and reacting to the New York Football Giants' Week 11 loss to the Green Bay Packers, 27-20. And we'll also be taking a look at the upcoming matchup against the Detroit Lions in Week 12. So we'll do a full-blown preview of that. Without further ado, let's get started up in here. I, right off the bat, want to apologize for how I appear and how I sound. It might not look or sound too much different, but I definitely feel like I'm coming down with something and I'm getting sick. So if the energy is not there today, that's on me. I am 100% accountable, just like new interim head coach Mike Kafka. I'm being accountable. I'm taking responsibility for my flaws and failures and shortcomings. 11 loss to the Packers. I think we should go back to our preview and look at what was happening coming into this game. Packers entered Week 11 having allowed the fewest 20-yard plays and 10-yard plays in the NFL. Right off the bat on the opening drive, Jameis Winston hits both Wan'Dale Robinson and Isaiah Hodgins for 20-yard gains. So, feeling pretty good right off the bat. Green Bay had also allowed a league-low 6 points on opponents' first offensive possessions. The Giants had scored 31 such points, tied for 6th in the league. Now they have 38 after that opening drive touchdown. It's something that's just, it's the norm now for this Giants offense, specifically under Jackson Dart, but Jameis Winston continues that tradition. What stinks is we were so desperate and hungry for opening drive scores and touchdowns for so long, and now we are getting it almost every single week, and yet you still don't feel great about it. It's like, oh my God, getting off to a hot start is so crucial and key. Getting off to a fast, quick start is what is going to help this team, the team's morale, and motivate them to say, hey, I know we're 2-8, or we have a losing record, and we're probably not going to make the playoffs, but we have the opportunity here to shock some people and come up with an upset win, which is something that I mentioned in the preview, that I would not be surprised if we do come out with a win here, considering our track history as a team against the Packers of late, upsetting them in London when Rodgers was with the team, upsetting them in 2023 on Monday night with Tommy DeVito, when Jordan Love was the quarterback. And Green Bay had been struggling, at least offensively. Defensively, it's like they're taking shape and taking form, especially after what happened in Dallas, and when they come away with that huge shootout tie in Dallas. But the Packers defense has really cracked down, and so nice to get an opening score there, because it's like technically started the season as QB3 and was QB3 for 10 freaking weeks, which is, I just cannot believe that was the case. We're missing Malik Neighbors, wide receiver 1. We're missing Darius Slayton, wide receiver 2. We're missing our starting running back, Cam Skattebo. We're missing a lot of guys on offense, and yet to still come out and put together a really solid opening drive against as we just mentioned, a Packers defense that just is really good in terms of limiting big plays, chunk plays, but also limiting opening possession scores. And we got chunk plays and an opening drive score. The offense played well. We did run the ball a lot. I think that was dictated by the weather. It was very windy. You saw it really affected it affects the passing game for sure, but it really affected the kicking game. Packers were without their starting kicker, McManus, so they go to the Havlicek, the backup kicker. He misses 2 or 3 extra points. Younghoe Koo missed an extra point. Of course, it was from 48 yards instead of 33 or whatever the standard yardage is, because of a stupid penalty. That's just like, how does that even happen on a friggin' extra point attempt? But so on a day when it's like passing is not gonna be something that you can rely on, we're gonna have to dial up the run, and we did. And even though the yards per carry is not high, the ability to not have negative rushing attempts was huge. The ability to, we're going to get positive yards every time. That's big. And, putting yourself in a situation offensively where it's manageable third downs, where you don't have to pass if you don't want to. And if you do pass in those situations, you can throw short because you only need 3 to 5 yards. And we saw that the screen game was a big part of the Giants' passing success. So offensively, outside of Jameis, in his first start, I mean, a lot of people are dismissing what happened with Jameis Winston in this game. The game is completely different if the Packers catch the interceptions that were just handed to them by Jameis Winston. Like, I like Jameis Winston. I think outside of those throws, he played a really good game. But it's like, if those are picked off, we're talking about possibly a 4 interception day in which the Packers are set up in Giants territory multiple times and you're killing drives. So people are dismissing it like, yeah, there were 3 or 4 passes it's like 3 or 4 passes that could have been picked off. And if you have a defensive backfield that can secure the ball, my God, dude, we're talking about this game being Packers 30 plus, possibly 40, and the Giants having less than 20. So we got extremely lucky and fortunate a lot of the time. Now, we weren't completely lucky and fortunate. There were a couple of calls that went against us and didn't go in our favor. But, all things considered, we were in a position to win yet again in the fourth quarter. I know it's only a point, and we probably could have had more points if we're not hinging the game on throwing to Jalin Hyatt, a guy who clearly does not want to play football for the Giants, much less the NFL. I don't know if he wants to actually play football anymore. It just seems like he's given up on the sport. And you have to wonder, like, if they were smarter about making decisions. And this goes back to, we took care of Brian Dable. He's no longer part of the equation, but now you have Joe Schoen still in the mix. And it's like, you let little Jordan Humphrey get signed off your practice squad by the Broncos. And this is a game where you could have for sure 1,000% used him, as specifically in the red zone. So Ray McLeod is just a weird pickup that didn't go anywhere. Little Jordan Humphrey showed you promise and potential, and you just gave up on him. And you decided to go with Jalin Hyatt. Is that to save Joe Schoen's job because he wants to show them that Hyatt still got it, especially after Dable leaves? But instead, we bring in Isaiah Hodgins off the Steelers practice squad. I can't believe he's on a practice squad to begin with. I know they're, great 2022 season, fell off and I guess fell out of favor with Dable in 2023. Wasn't on the team in 2024, I don't believe. But, it's just the state and level of dysfunction in this organization is something that I've never been alive for. I heard the 70s were pretty fucked, but, and, I keep bringing them up because it's just been the 70s all over again since 2013 and possibly worse, possibly worse than the 70s. This is a dark, dark time. And I wonder where this organization and this fan base would be had we not made the playoffs in 2016 and 2022. We could have very easily not made the playoffs in 2016 and 2022 as well. It's not like we were dominant and dominating. Packers, the top 10, top 5 defense, and this Giants offense kept fighting and put together like 3 or 4 really labor-intensive double-digit play drives. So the offense seems to be in a better place, and that's mostly driven by the offensive line. You can see, like, would you rather have no offensive line, a piss poor offensive line, and weapons, which we did have for the latter half of Eli Manning's career and for pretty much all of Daniel Jones' career with the Giants, and have all these weapons that are like Odell and Ingram and Shep and Cruz, and you keep getting all these weapons offensively, Barkley, but you can't get them the ball because you don't have any level of protection. Whereas now you have an offensive line that is protecting and looks like it can start to run the ball again, which is a good sign. And we're now looking at, it's not just an average offensive line. Over the course of the season, it's getting to the point where it could be a top 10 offensive line, which is like unheard of and is just refreshing. Now, I really don't hope that the front office, the higher ups, the ownership take a look at that and say, well, Joe Shane's our guy. It's like, no, because there are plenty of other areas where he's completely fumbled the ball. Defensively, he has completely fumbled the ball. Special teams, likewise. So, Kafka's first game as interim head coach showed that he was going to be. He acted more like a head coach than Brian Dable ever has. He was at least consistent in what he was trying to achieve and accomplish. He had a game plan. He stuck to it. It was successful for the most part. You just hate that you have to rely on guys like Jalin Hyatt. When you had a little Jordan Humphrey who shows he can at least try, at least be competitive in these contested 50-50 catch situations down the field. And you wonder, like, if you had little Jordan Humphrey and Isaiah Hodgins in this game combined, like, I feel like you might win the game, even with the defense, stinking it up in the final quarter. But I thought Kafka, other than the one replay call where, I didn't see I was distracted on a call with someone for the majority of the first quarter, but so I missed his first challenge, but apparently lost it, and it was not something that he should have challenged. And then he should have challenged the Wan'Dale Robinson catch that would have been a first down, and he felt like, and I don't blame him. Everyone's like, "Oh, that was definitely a catch, And I'm saying to myself, does everyone have amnesia? Does everyone forget that the officiating this year has been god awful, just atrocious across the board? It wasn't much better in this game. It was really bad in the Lions-Eagles game on Sunday night. So I don't blame him at all for not going for that challenge, because they fucked up a challenge on the Packers Musgraves fumble, which we'll get to. So I don't blame him for not going for the challenge again there, because who knows when you absolutely need it coming down the line in a much more critical situation. Other than this was like the first quarter, I think it was that happened. So overall, I appreciate what Kafka did. I think defensively, could have been a lot worse. I mean, the Packers offense is just they scored 27, but like they should have put up way more. I mean, plenty of drop balls, and just not taking advantage of what we were giving them. But yet everyone's like, oh, the Packers offense wasn't full speed, and yet they put up 27 points, and they still had, they lost Josh Jacobs in the first half, and Love went out for a series or two with the shoulder injury. They did get Christian Watson back, which was, in my eyes, the difference for the Packers offense, because no one else could catch the freaking ball. So, anyway, I think I want to say the team surpassed my expectations, but I did feel like, even with all the injuries, that there's a good chance that we could get steal an upset win here, because the Packers were kind of like stuck in neutral almost. They looked like a Super Bowl favorite after they like put a thumping on the Lions in the opener, and then you had like the tie the Cowboys, and you're like, what? But then the defense is just playing, pretty much lockdown, lights out for majority of the season, but now the offense is stalling. Like, Packers look really good against the Steelers in Pittsburgh, but then they fall to the Panthers, they lose the Browns. It's like, what? What are you? Who are you? So I definitely felt like the Giants had a good chance to win here, even with all the injuries, which we didn't even get into the injuries. So let's get into the friggin' injuries, dude. And this next little rant section I got going here, this little diatribe I'm about to go on, makes me want to stop being a Giants fan. It makes me question why I spend the amount of time and effort I do on this team when this team does not give a fuck. Like, as a collective, there are individual players that they're giving their all and they're trying their best. Jameis Winston, Brian Burns. There are players like that we have on this team that really truly do care and want to go out there and win. But there's a much larger group of players on this team that does not care. And I think that is systemic, and the players have been infected because the coaches are infected, because the front office is infected. It's just a virus. And to me, the only way to get rid of that virus and to attack it, and the antidote is to clean house. Anyone who's giving you any kind of you really have to do a plus minus with everyone in that building and say, if you are a net negative, you're gone. We need net positives here. Graham Gano was placed on the IR. Seeing him in a fucking neck brace reminded me of Bobby Heenan, Bobby the Brain Heenan from WWF days, where he's faking a neck injury because he doesn't want anyone to attack him, or he wants to gain sympathy from the fan base. I understand he has a herniated disc. It's a real, he had to get surgery. It's a real injury, but it's just that visual of him in a neck brace is going to be the everlasting memorial for Graham Gano when we, for the love of God, move on from him in the offseason. That is going to be the lasting image of Graham Gano with the Giants, is him in a fucking neck brace. And of course, and then they have to turn the Younghoe Koo, who, despite not missing anything in the Bears game, every single kick he had in that Bears game gave me zero confidence in Younghoe Koo. Those were not clean, strong kicks. Those were oh, he just curved it in there. He just made that. It's very iffy, edgy stuff. So in a game where, and this could be another knock on Kafka, is knowing that you have this backup, technically third string kicker, because they fucking started Jude McTamaney over a goddamn Younghoe Koo. You have a third string kicker who was cut from a team already for missing kicks, who showed you little to didn't give you a whole lot of confidence in that Chicago game, which was a bad weather game. You're in another bad weather game now where the wind is crazy. So I think and there's been a lot of disagreement about this in Discord, where it's well, so you'd rather kick a 48-yard extra point versus a 2-point conversion from the 12? It's in my eyes, I would go for the 2-point conversion from the 12 instead of a 48-yard extra point, just because it's Younghoe Koo and the wind is out of control. So that could be another, knock on Kafka. But overall, I think Kafka was spot on with a lot of what he was doing. I like that he was being assertive on fourth down, although going for it on 4th and 2 or 4th and 1 from your own 30 is a move. That we know for sure Brian Daboll wouldn't try that. Brian Daboll won't even fucking try 4th and 2 from the opponent's 48. Good God. So the assertiveness, the aggressiveness on 4th down, and the players rewarded him for those decisions and those choices by picking up the first downs, other than the one down on the Green Bay 10 or 12 where, Jameis did have a crosser open, a shallow cross. I think it was Wandale, and he just missed it because he was getting pressured. So Graham Gano on the IR, neck brace, everlasting image. That's, put it on his tombstone. And then you have Evan Neal going on the injured reserve. A guy who has not suited up for a single game this year, has been a healthy scratch all fucking year. Doesn't even really see the playing, doesn't see the playing field in games, doesn't see the field in practice, yet somehow hurt himself. Dan Duggan reported that Mike Kafka said Evan Neal got hurt during a workout, which Graham Gano also hurt himself at some point doing something and then aggravated it even worse in a workout. So, this is where it goes back to looking at every single person in that fucking building and saying, are you a net negative or net positive? take a look at our injury reports. Our injury reports are riddled with players. Every single season, every single week, we just have a laundry list of players that are on the injured list. So you have to look at your medical staff and medical personnel. You have to look at your training staff and say, what's going on here? What do you attribute this to? So Evan Neal, I guess, did something to his hamstring during a workout, and they put him on IR. So that's a fitting end to his Giants career. Interesting to see where he goes and how he pans out. I'm sure he'll go somewhere and become a Pro Bowl guard. That's just how it works. Jalin Hyatt being unable to run a route in year 3 of his professional career is crazy. You know, it all goes back to that clip we saw when we drafted him, where you had a Cowboys wide receiver coach talking to Hyatt and saying, like, what do you got? Speed, okay, but can you run a route? And people are like, Giants fans came to Jalin Hyatt's defense, which is typical. It's par for the course for a team that's just drafted someone they think highly of, that we traded up to get in the 3rd round. You know, you want to come to your guy's aid and say, hey, yeah, he hasn't even played a snap in the NFL yet. Let's see what our coaches can do. Well, spoiler alert, our coaches couldn't do shit with him. And, you know, you can't put all the blame on the coaches because, you know, and Carl Banks has said this, it's coaches responsible for coaching up, but it's also the players. Like, are you trying to get coached up? Meaning, are you trying to learn? Are you trying to get better? Are you actually hearing what the coach is telling you and taking that advice and putting it into practice, you know? And it just seems like he just like, this is become a recurring theme with a lot of Joe Schoen's draft classes is decent first year, rookie year, and then worse second year to unplayable third year. It's happened with Jalin Hyatt. It's happened with Deonte Banks. It has not happened to JMS. I think JMS might be the exception there, where it's like he's not as bad as he has been in the past. He's not exactly like, we're not looking at him as he's the long-term starter. And we've seen that he can be replaced with someone like an Austin Schlottman, and we don't necessarily miss a beat, and we might be a little bit better with Schlottman. So JMS might be the exception there, but you traded up for Banks, you traded up for Hyatt, and both of them are like literally unplayable. And the only reason they're on the field is because you have so many injuries and you're so decimated across the board. So, I don't see any reason why you would need to keep a Jalin Hyatt. It's like, just cut your ties, because you have other receivers that you could bring in and they can make an impact, like an Isaiah Hodgins. Isaiah Hodgins being picked up off the Steelers practice squad like 3 to 4 days before game time, and then he's the leading receiver on the team, dude. And everyone to a T, was saying that it's the wrong move to let him go, that we should have resigned him like in training camp. And that it was ridiculous to move on from him because of what he showed you in 2022. And, sure enough, he comes in and he's making catches, tough catches, big catches in big spots. And it's just like, wait, what? So you guys, who does that fall on? Whose decision was it to move on from him? It's hard to ignore the fact that Brian Daboll gets fired, you go out and you re-sign Isaiah Hodgins. That, you can say coincidence all you want, but we all have brains. Like, why didn't you had this when Neighbors goes down in week 3, you had the opportunity. You had everyone chomping at the bit. We got to pick some up. We got to pick some up. We got to pick some up. And you didn't. And everyone's saying, Isaiah Hodgins, bring him back, bring him back. And then it took you to week fucking 11 to bring him back. And you let little Jordan Humphrey go. So it's, for everyone claiming that Joe Schoen has done a great job with the salary cap, well, we're 2-9 and we have the least amount of, if we don't have the least amount of space, we're in the bottom 5 in terms of least amount of salary cap space. That's on Joe Schoen. With all that money you're spending, we're 2-9, and we're looking like we're going to get the second or first pick in the draft. We're the worst team in the NFC. So, okay. Because if you're using the salary cap is like, oh, we have such good health. It's like, well, you could have cut Graham Cano. Because right now, the only things pointing to, if you don't believe in the Brian Dable angle, right? You don't believe that Brian Dable is the reason that Isaiah Hodgins was not signed. The other angle with letting Little Jordan Humphrey walk and not elevating him and signing him to the active roster had to be salary cap. It had to be salary cap. So, but the reason why you're in that tight position and you can't elevate Little Jordan Humphrey and sign Isaiah Hodgins is because of the salary cap. If you're not going to use Brian Dable as an excuse, and that's on Joe Schoen. And he could have avoided all this if he cut fucking Graham Gano and he moved on. There's just a lot of moves that are left on the table. Joe Schoen is a net negative. That's not to say he has no positives. He has positives that are working in his favor. Offensive line, trading up for Dart, Cam Skattebo, Marcus Bowe. But it's like, if we've learned anything, it's a lot of what's happened from the earlier draft classes. It's not like they're progress year after year. So the Isaiah Hodgins, Little Jordan Humphrey thing is just so frustrating. And it just makes me think that if they do decide to retain Joe Schoen after this year, I don't know that I want to watch. I don't know that I want to tune in. I don't know that I want to cover them on the podcast anymore. It's just going to be more of the same. The level of bullshit that's going on in this organization is just like, it's getting worse, dude, and worse and worse and worse. I'm not even going to get into the whole fucking Jackson Dart leak that happened, where it's like the team, Pat Leonard made such a huge deal out of this on his Talking Ball podcast. And I was just like, this is the least of our worries, dude. Like, the fact that, the local reporters always get so pissed when the Giants leak something to the national media and then they try to make it a big deal. And it's just like, okay, Jackson Dart's taking a lot of hits. Right? It's like the third, fifth most hits in the season, QB hits. And a lot of that is because of Jackson Dart and the decisions that he's made and not just running out of bounds, dude. Like, you launching your helmet at a defender while you're heading towards the sideline is not going to do much for you, especially when you already have the fucking first down. So, just taking unnecessary hits. A lot of that's on Jackson Dart. And then I guess the angle is, I didn't want to talk about this because it's so stupid, but I guess it does matter. Dart, apparently the Giants leaked something to the national media. It says that Shea Tierney, the quarterback's coach, had a talk with Jackson Dart to limit the amount of hits that he's taking. And so, the local media and beat reporters are trying to say that that's the Giants trying to cover their ass for they completely bungled the situation in the Bears game. And so this is the Giants' response to that, is like, to avoid any more criticism, they're going to put this out that they've had multiple conversations with Jackson Dart about protecting himself. And then you have certain people coming out and saying, oh, well, the Giants have too many designed runs. And it's like, well, there are design runs that have had a tremendous amount of success. And then there are some design runs where it's like, why are you calling that design run when the game is out of hand and we're not making a comeback? You're putting your quarterback at risk. Listen, the Giants did not handle the Jackson Dart concussion situation against the Bears well at all. And I'm shocked that there hasn't been any kind of penalty or anything levied against the Giants in that situation, because it's so painfully clear that he was down and he was out. He was limp on the field, didn't go for the fumble, and they put him back in the game after a very long amount of time. We're talking 5 minutes of game time, an entire quarter break, right? Third quarter ends. They had that break to talk to this dude and to say, hey, shit's not right. And they still put him back out in the game for an entire series. So I want to see the Giants pay for what they've done to Jackson Dart just as much as the next guy. But to make this, who gives a fuck about, the leaks, I guess, happen when you have a losing team and a losing franchise, I look at the Eagles too. Like, AJ Brown's making this huge stink about the Eagles, and it's like, you guys are fucking what, 9-2 now, 8-2. Your defense is playing at an elite level. You're winning games. Like, shut up. Just shut up. Ugh. I get so tired of these winning teams that are bitching and complaining. I mean, like, dude, you see Ben Johnson after the Bears go to 7-3, winning the game. He leaves this. They have footage of him walking down the tunnel into the locker room, and he looks fucking furious. They just won the game. They're 7-3. They're in first fucking place in the North, by the way, which is nuts to say. And they're pissed. And yet we're over here making excuses. We got to get better, and dealing with the circus. It is an absolute 3-ring, full-blown, 5-alarm circus for the New York Giants. Case in point, Cam Skattebo, who's recovering from a dislocated ankle, okay? He puts out a video from his stream showing that he's able to move it. And he's able to move around. It's very encouraging. And it's like, oh, this is great. He's making progress. And then you see a clip from Monday Night fucking Raw where he's in the first row with the comedian. I forget his name. Really funny comedian who I actually met and talked to when I was at Daily Motion. Had a special came out this year called Life that was really great. Andrew Schultz. I see Andrew Schultz, and I see the captions like Cam Skattebo and Abdul Carter like at WWE, and I'm like, all right, well, it's fine for them to like be at the show. Okay, fine. You're in the first row. You should be able to experience it. It's at MSG, Madison Square Garden. Great. You're there. I have no issues with that. But then they're like part of the storyline. Cam Skattebo is pushing Dominic Mysterio. You then have another dude come up. I think it was Adam Cole, and Abdul Carter starts punching him, quote unquote. Obviously, it's choreographed and it's not meant, he's not really throwing punches, but like, you guys should not be fucking doing that. And you could say it's a generational issue, generational difference. Old man yelling at the clouds, boomer take. But what the fuck, dude? We're 2-9, dude. We're 2-9. We just had our head coach fired. We're probably gonna have a defensive coordinator fired. We're in a state of absolute disarray, and you're going to a WWE show and getting involved physically. Like, listen, I see George Kittle at WrestleMania. I see him at all kinds of WWE events. He is never getting involved in the action. He is there smoking a couple beers and enjoying himself. And this is coming off Abdul Carter being benched for the first series of the Giants game because he, quote unquote, fell asleep in a walkthrough. He then responds and says, I was actually in recovery, but no excuses. I apologize. And it's like, what do you mean you're in recovery? Wouldn't the training staff then inform the coach that, hey, he needs extra recovery? What? This is where it's like I would absolutely hold everyone's feet to the fucking fire in that goddamn building. If I'm owner, I'm like, no. We're not doing this anymore. That enough is enough, guys. We're beyond a laughing stock at this point. It's like almost feels like we're doing this on purpose. Interview the training staff. What the fuck happened here? Apparently Kafka talks to Abdul and he said, and they all worked it out, and it's only one series. So even after he falls asleep and misses the walkthrough and is benched for the first series, he goes to fucking Monday Night Raw and is getting into a fake fight where, listen, I understand it's choreographed. I understand it's not real. He's not really throwing punches. But say you go to throw a punch, you're not a professional wrestler. Cam Skattebo is not a professional wrestler. You're telling me you guys rehearse that? You're telling me that even after rehearsal, you have it down pat and that you're going to be able to pull this off without getting hurt? Why even put yourself in that fucking situation? Cam Skattebo is already hurt, dude. Can you imagine he pushes Adam Cole or Dom Mysterio and some other fucking idiot that's another part of that crew comes over and pushes him and now he's hurt again? And then Abdul Carter throwing fake punches. Like, what if someone else decides to throw a fake punch because Abdul Carter got the timing wrong in the choreography of it all, and he connects with Abdul Carter's hand and breaks his fucking hand? You should not be getting involved in that fucking physically at all at that event. In season, dude. It's another thing if this is off season. It's in late February, early March, even April. In that span, you want to go to a show, you want to get kind of involved, fine. We're in season. You just got benched for the first series because you fell asleep in a fucking walkthrough, and then you're gonna go on WWE Raw and put yourself at risk, dude. I know people are gonna say I'm overblowing this and calm down. It's not a big issue. This is a big issue. This shit does not happen under Tom Coughlin's watch. This shit does not happen under Jim Fossil's watch or Bill Parcells' watch. And Bill Parcells had Lawrence motherfucking Taylor, who was a party addict, party animal, coke, prostitutes. But like, would he have allowed him to go to a WWE event in season and risk injury I mean, like, it's just that clip. The more and more I saw it, I keep seeing it. The first time I saw it on my timeline, I'm like, all right, I can't watch this. And then I'm like, because I'm hoping it's just, it's just like, ooh, look, it's the Giants. It's Cam Skattebo, Abdul Carter at a WWE event. And so that's like the angle there. And it's like, no, they actually got physically involved where Cam Skattebo's like, I know it's just a push. If Cam Skattebo fucks up that push and then retweaks the ankle and then it's another however many months of recovery and he misses the start of the fucking 2026, like, just don't even risk that. There's no issue with you going to a hockey game, a WWE event, a baseball game, something, and just being out there and having fun and having a beer. No problem with that. When you are getting physically involved in an altercation in WWE, I don't care how fucking fake it is, you're risking so much, dude. Why? And that's why, and like, if I'm Mike Kafka and I see that shit, it's like, Carter, you're not playing the first half. And test me again and see what happens. And don't think that we won't trade you. Like, you need to start getting a little bit, you need to show some more tough love with these motherfuckers, because it's just like, it's getting insane how you can play so soft and not give a shit during practice, but you're going to put more effort into going to a fucking WWE event and throwing fake hands with a rep. I mean, Jesus Christ, dude. Jesus Christ. And Abdul had the opportunity here with Kayvon Thibodeau out for the game. He had the opportunity to play the position he was drafted at and play majority, if not all, the snaps, which he did after he was benched for the first series. And you had the opportunity to come out and show the world why we drafted you at number 3, and you didn't do fucking shit. So Abdul Carter, as much as like every week we see like these posts about how many pressures he's gotten, that's all well and dandy, man, but like, are you really impacting and affecting the game where you're making a difference and making plays? You see glimpses here and there, but we're now in week 11, dude, and like, you have not taken over a game. You still don't have a full fucking sack yet. You're getting manhandled on blocking assignments, not chasing and hustling after plays. So there's a lot to not like about what Abdul Carter's doing. Is he a total bust? I'm not putting him in that category, but holy fuck, dude. Holy fuck. You're trending that way. Like, just look around you, Abdul. You have Deonte Banks, who is hailed as could be the CB1, who's not playable now. You have Jalin Hyatt, who's like looking to be the wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, not playable now. It can go downhill really quick. And the fact that I just really wish Mike Kafka would step up and do something about this, because that's unacceptable, dude. That is unacceptable. If I'm a head coach, I am furious. And I understand that's what got Brian Daboll in trouble, is his emotions and his lack of control over his emotions. But that, like, he had some poor decision making in game and was unable to handle his emotions in game. But then not like what I understand is you can't have the kind of practices in training camp and whatever workouts that Brian Daboll held, where it's soft and he's a player's coach during the week, and then when you see the final end product on Sundays or Mondays, whenever the game day is, and it's not up to your standard and you lose your shit, that doesn't make sense to players. It's inconsistent, and that's been the key word with Brian Daboll, was inconsistent. Can you be consistent? Can Mike Kafka now be consistent? He was fairly consistent, talking about consistency and being accountable leading up to this game, which is something that Brian Daboll just did not address. And so it's like he's saying the right thing, but now you have the opportunity. Okay, you sat Abdul Carter for a series. Okay, that's a good first step, because you can't miss a walkthrough. We have to set a good example. You now see him on Monday Night Raw throwing fake hands with a pro wrestler with another of your top draft picks who has a dislocated ankle. Now, say Abdul Carter goes for the punch, Cam takes a step right, and fucking Abdul lands on his dislocated ankle, dude. I mean, like, I know, like, I can be catastrophic in my thinking. I understand that, but just don't put yourself in that situation. That needs to be on Abdul Carter and Cam Skattebo to say, you know what, we appreciate what you guys are trying to do. We love the WWE. We appreciate it. Show some maturity and and this is the tough part. They're both rookies. They're 22, 23. And so, like, they probably would have been looking forward to this for a long time. And it's like, no, you have to think about your future and the team's future. You put yourself in a very precarious position with that. I'm totally fine with you sitting first row and talking smack and trash to the other guys. That's fine for me. But then there's a push, and then there's a throwing a punch, and there's a lot of jostling and moving around. It's just like, holy shit, dude. Why are you guys? Can you imagine that if we were in the playoff race and fucking Abdul Carter and Cam Skattebo got hurt in that situation? The level of insanity that would happen. But because we're 2-9, like, that's acceptable. And this is Mike Kafka's opportunity to say, no, that's not fucking acceptable. It's like, dude, you want to win the head coaching spot real quick? Punish, discipline, consequences. I hate that happened. I hate it. You know, Deonte Banks was drafted by Wink Martindale because he's a press man-to-man guy, and he does not know how to play zone. And it's not like he's not. And the funny thing is he's not getting torched. He's just not making the play. In the pass, in the run game, he's one of the worst cornerbacks, including Deion Sanders defending the run. Like, Deion it was always a business decision with Deion. With Deonte, it's like he's not even making a fucking effort in the run game. So whatever there. But at least from the pass defense respect, it's not like he's getting torched. He is in the receiver's hip pocket and cannot bat the ball away, which is something I don't think I've ever fucking seen in my life. I've never seen a cornerback be so glued to a receiver every single time, be in a position to make a play and bat away the ball, defend the pass, and not do it every single time, dude. The odds of that happening and the probability of that happening are so fucking low, and yet Deonte Banks does it 100% of the time. Drew Phillips losing snaps to Nick Jones. This is the kind of shit that's like, what makes you think that Joe Schoen should keep his job after seeing the players that he's drafted getting benched and doing stupid shit? And the absolute cherry on top of this fucking shit Sunday. I don't know if this is true. I think I heard it on Big Blue Banter podcast with Nick Filato and Dan Schneier. Reportedly, Shane Bowen has a quote-unquote turnover chest, okay, a la like a treasure chest that a pirate would be after to get the booty, and handed out T-shirts that say, "Be a pirate" on it. You want to talk about a fucking loser organization? You want to talk about a loser situation with a bunch of losers and loser mentality? That's not even like college level shit. Like, I get it. I watch college football. Every college defense now has, just like in baseball, when a team hits a home run, everyone has to have their little gimmick. Like, here's a fucking sombrero, and here's a trident, and here's your jacket. And like, I get it. It's whatever they do. Every baseball team is now copying it now, where it's like you get a hit and you got to do some kind of fucking stupid hand gesture. It's just like what teams do to rally each other. And honestly, I'm kind of sick of it. I think it's stupid and that's an old man take, but I'm going to stand by it. I think it's dumb. And so but this is not even like college defenses. You have the Miami Hurricanes with the turnover chain. I get it. That's college. This is the pros. This is the NFL. Shane Bowen, pack your shit and go to college. And it's not even college level. Go to high school football, dude. A high school football defense might be in on that shit. But to give grown men who are paid money to play a sport a turnover chest and be a pirate T-shirts, what are we doing? What are we actually doing? Wellington Mara must be turning over in his fucking grave, thinking about this shit. Like, this is what my organization and franchise has become. We have to have a turnover chest and be a pirate. And spoiler alert, we're getting 0 turnovers. So maybe ditch that. Brought in a defensive coordinator who's known for defending the run. We're one of the worst rush defenses in the league. He's also a zone pass coverage defensive coordinator. And we have 2 guys that are known for playing press man to man. What are we doing? It's stuff like this. I mean, this is all just this week, by the way. This is just this week. That whole list of shit that I just went through is just this week. Like, why would a fan give a shit about this team? For as much hope as we have for when Neighbors comes back and Skattebo comes back, and we add another piece on offense, and we have Jackson Dart, and we have this offensive line that's growing, and they need to keep together. Not so much Van Roten. You could probably move on. You could probably give some more competition to JMS, but like Illuminor is your right tackle. Thomas is your left tackle. Runyon is getting better. He can be your left guard, but like Runyon's on an expiring contract. You need a right guard, you need a center, and you probably need a left guard as well. Just because the offensive line this season has gotten better doesn't mean you say, oh, got that wrapped up. I did it. I fixed it. No. This is a nice little short-term period of success. And to turn it into long-term success, Andrew Thomas still very young. I think he's like 26 or 27, which is absurd. Illuminor is late 20s, early 30s. So it's not like you can't treat it like, oh, we got him for another 10 years. Like, we have him for like another 3 years. You have an open spot in right guard. You have, to me, it's open competition at center, and you need to draft a left guard who can then you can transition to once Runyon's contract is up. But Joe Schoen's done a wonderful job with the salary cap. The reason why we're in this fucking position we're in right now and we're losing games is because we don't have the personnel, and we don't have the personnel because Joe Schoen fucked up the salary cap. You can argue till you're blue in the face, dude. I'm digging in on this. I'm dying on this hill. The offense had their fourth best game of the season by expected points contributed. We're also tied for the 4th most first downs, and we had the 4th most rushing yards of the season in this game. So the offense came to play. Who knows how different it would have been if the Packers defense actually held on to interceptions. We're talking about 3 or 4 interceptions that would have completely altered the game. So we got fortunate in that respect. And then defensively, this was our 3rd worst game by expected points contributed, 3rd fewest first downs allowed, fewest total yards allowed, and 2nd fewest passing yards allowed. So what does that tell you? How do you have the 3rd fewest first downs allowed, the fewest total yards allowed, and the 2nd fewest passing yards allowed, and still give up 27 points? And still have one of your worst games by expected points contributed. Ugh. So we talked about that opening drive where it's capped by Devin Singletary's 5-yard run. I thought this was a really great run by Motor. His ability to do the jump cut, the initial hole's not there. He cuts it back and is able to get in. I don't think anyone said that Devin Singletary is not a good running back. We just thought that Tyrone Tracy gave you a little more productivity and output. And at this point, I think they're about even. Tyrone Tracy still had a really great day. So you have to feel good about your running back room in 2026, because I do think you still have Devin Singletary for one more season under contract. I could be wrong about that. 2024, I think it was a 3-year contract. And I don't see any reason to move on from him because, like, I guess Eric Gray is supposed to come back from some kind of mystery injury. But I think that's a good running back room to have moving forward. You had that Christian Watson 1-yard touchdown catch from Malik Wilson, which had an incredibly low probability rate. We'll get into that once we go over the drives and the top plays. Green Bay obviously missed. They missed the extra point because the wind is a bitch. And then Emmanuel Wilson, about halfway through the second quarter, gets 11-yard run for the score. That was a pretty pathetic attempt at run defense from the Giants, led by none other than Deonte Banks. Giants tied up with about 1:11 in the second quarter with another Devin Singletary 2-yard rush. I thought that was interesting formation on that. I don't think we've seen that formation a lot. It was basically 3 in the backfield. So Winston in our center, heavy formation. You have, I believe it was Elijah Chapman as a fullback. Devin Singletary is your running back to the right of Chapman, and then to the left, I believe you had Belly. So it was a really interesting formation. I was like, ooh, well, tickled my fancy a little bit, and just a great individual effort by Singletary, who, funnily enough, was getting chastised and scolded by Elijah Chapman on the previous play because I guess Chapman was expecting Singletary to cut it up because, Chapman was trying to kick out, and he's like, if you just let me kick out, you should have cut back in, which is Elijah wrong, but no, it's just hilarious that a fucking D tackle converted into a fullback who's not even a full-time fullback is giving the full-time running back who's a veteran in this game, giving him shit. Like, yeah, that's the 2025 Giants for you. Towards the start of the third quarter, the Packers got the second half kickoff, and they get the Jordan Love's back in the game at that point, and he tosses the 2-yard touchdown pass to Josh Wiley. Packers missed extra point, and Elijah Chapman's season on X at CH518906, change it, said Giants run that play and get flagged. And I think, yeah, every Giants fan has to agree on that. If the Giants run that play, it's an obvious pick play where I think it's Christian Watson is wide right, doesn't even pretend to run a slant, just runs directly into the Javon Holland, who gets put on his ass and who is supposed to be covering Josh Wiley. And so Wiley's wide open for the touchdown. So Giants get called for that 10 out of 10 times. And then halfway through the fourth, we get the Jameis Winston quarterback sneak to tie it up, and then Younghoe Koo kicks the extra point to give us the 1-point lead. And then with about 4 minutes left in the game, Jordan Love throws that deep ball to a double-covered Christian Watson, who comes down with the catch for the touchdown to go up 27-20. We have the opportunity to, Winston puts together a drive that takes us into scoring territory, and we decide to dial up a play that is schemed to a receiver who doesn't deserve to be on the team, who has shown that he doesn't know how to run routes, who's shown he gives up on plays, and we decide this is the play that we're going to go to Jalin Hyatt. Again, I think just trying to outthinking yourself. Like, is the thinking there like, oh, there's no way they're going to Jalin Hyatt on this. They're probably going to Hodgins. There's no way they're going to Jalin Hyatt. And, of course, we go to Jalin Hyatt. He stops his route on a corner, which is pretty much unheard of. And Packers get the game-sealing interception. In terms of team stats, the Giants got more first downs than the Packers. We outrushed them. We outthrew them. Same amount of sacks on both sides. They had 2 fumbles, and we weren't able to capitalize. We had the 1 fumble at the end when Winston gets strip-sacked by Micah Parsons. So Winston accounts for 2 turnovers, only 1 touchdown on the ground, and probably should have had 3 more interceptions. So this is just what it's going to be with Winston at the helm, is you just got to hope that the interceptions don't come back to bite him. There are plenty of times where I've watched, even the Browns games where he was quarterback, and when you look at his final stat line, you're like, what a day. And then you look at the highlights and it's like, oh, dropped pick, drop pick, drop pick. We were 7-14 on third down, and we were 3 or 4 on fourth down, which was good to see. Of course, the most important fourth down was that 4th and 3 at the Packers 10 or 12. And again, he misses that shallow crosser to Wandale, which would have been a touchdown. We had 35 minutes of possession to Green Bay's 24. So we dominated in that respect. It was the right game plan, and we executed it. And we probably should have, we could, I shouldn't say we should have won or we could have won, because honestly, we should have lost big time with the amount of drops that the Packers had, both from the receivers and from their defenders. Big Blue Film Room on X said the Giants offensive line coming into this game had a 67% pass block win rate, which is good enough for 8th best in the NFL. That did not change much in this game. I think they really protected well, especially in the first half. Big Blue Film Room also said that Andrew Thomas has, coming into the game, had an 86.9 PFF grade for the season, 3rd best among offensive tackles. And he had another great game in this one, which we'll get into his stats for this game. But he did have that holding penalty called on him, which, man, it's just so uncharacteristic of him. And he just did not need to do that. And, you could say they didn't have to call it. I get it. But his arm, like, you are a massive individual, a monster, if you will. And you are now going up against a defensive back who is like half your size. You don't need to get the arms all wide and hug the bitch. You just need to fucking push him. Like, it was just such a bad, like, just a slip up in an otherwise flawless season for him. Lawrence Tynes, former Giants kicker on X, said in 3 career games versus the Packers, Jameis Winston has 7 touchdowns, 0 picks, and a 123.3 QBR, which is the 2nd highest of his career against any opponent coming into the game. And so that was another reason why I thought, okay, well, maybe we got something here. Maybe we do come out with a stunner, considering how discombobulated the Packers are and just can't get their shit together. Coming off a pretty gnarly loss to the Eagles on Monday night, I believe it was. So in terms of Giants drives, we had 9 total drives, 8 if you don't count the kneel down at the end of the first half. Opening drives, 9 plays, 65 yards, 4 minutes, 25 seconds. The second touchdown drive was 11 plays, 6 minutes and 28 seconds in length. You had a 16-play drive on our first drive of the third quarter that took up 9 minutes and 46 seconds and ended in a turnover on downs. Should you have kicked the field goal there? Meh, I don't know. I don't know that it would have really mattered. Ultimately, hindsight 2020, it didn't, because you get the field goal there. It's like, all right, it's 27-23. You still need a touchdown to win the game. I guess if you went for 2 each time instead of trying to kick the extra point, and then you kick the field goal there, is it difference? It's 8. Then you have a 5th that's followed up by the very next drive, 15 plays, 7 minutes and 59 seconds for 85 yards, and they get the touchdown. That was the Jameis Winston QB sneak. And then the drive in which Winston was, had us going for the win, started at our own 35, 10 plays, 3 minutes, 26 seconds, 51 yards, and ends in the pick because Jalin Hyatt smells. And then you have the strip sack fumble at the end, which, to me, looking back on that, I know we were out of timeouts. I would have really liked and the Packers were playing very far off. Why not just hit like a 10-yard out on the sideline? That cannot take 10 seconds. And then you have maybe like 2 seconds left, 1 second left. You're only going to have 1 play left. It puts you in a better position to reach the end zone on a Hail Mary. And Winston doesn't feel the need to just load up as much as he did on the strip sack. So in terms of top plays, a 3rd and 5 from the Giants 40 on the opening drive. Winston hits Wan'Dale Robinson for 20 yards, which was a thing of beauty. Then you have 2nd and 10 on that same drive. Winston completes to Isaiah Hodgins for 20. In the second quarter, Winston completing a short pass to Tyrone Tracy for 20 yards. I believe that was a screen pass. That was a 3rd and 12 situation from our own 30, so that was huge. And then 3rd and 1, you have Jameis Winston taking a QB sneak for 10 yards. And I saw someone post, I think it was Barstool Sports, it was like, Packers trying to ban the Jameis Winston QB sneak because they were so adamant about banning the tush pish. You also had in that drive towards near the 2-minute warning where we, I think we ended up missing the field goal there. It was 13-7. No, this is the one we ended up tying the drive where we tied the game at 13-13. Jameis Winston pass incomplete, short left to Theo Johnson, but they got the defensive pass interference for 14 yards, giving us the first down. And so we ended up tying the game. Of course, Younghoe Koo misses the extra point because Austin Schlottman is penalized for a 15-yard chop block on an extra point, which I don't get that at all. And so I knew for a fact he was going to miss that, and I thought he was going to miss any kind of field goal I had him missing, and he shocked me by actually making the field goal. Jordan Raanan posted on X that the Packers did not have a single QB hit in the first half, so credit to the Giants' offensive line. In the third quarter, at our own 36, this is where Kafka made the bold choice to go for it on 4th and 1. We have Devin Singletary in a wildcat formation, which I thought was like, hey, we're telegraphing where the ball's going, because is there any indication that Devin Singletary is going to throw this ball? Absolutely not. But yet he picks up the first down. It was iffy, though. You know, he definitely got stopped at first, and then they just kept pushing. So good on him for keeping the play alive and for the offensive line to continuing to push. But my God, what a move. Down 19-13 at that point. So you don't get that there. I don't want to say it's an automatic 3 because of the weather conditions, but whew, what a gamble. And then later on in the drive, we have another 4th down, 4th and 3 from the Giants 45. Again, Dable would have fucking punted this shit. We're down 19-13 by 6. And Jameis Winston buys time, and is able to find Isaiah Hodgins for 12 yards. Another huge catch by Isaiah Hodgins. Again, why did we sign him before week 11 and not week 4? That's 7 weeks we could have had Hodgins, and who knows how things play out differently if we have him on the team. 4th and 3, this is the one where we had the shot and we missed it. It was a little over 2 minutes left in the third. We're at the 10. 4th and 3, down by 6. Winston gets sacked by Micah Parsons for 7 yards and Isaiah McDuffie. But, you know, to me, it's like he just didn't see the crosser. It just sucks. And you go for a field goal there knowing that, like, you know, it's a 27-yard field goal. Like, you would think that Younghoe Koo could make that. And then it goes to 19-16. And then you end up scoring a touchdown and kicking the extra point, which would have made it 23 points. So, yeah, you're still needed a touchdown at the end of the game there. Beginning of the fourth quarter, 3rd and 5 at our own 20. We have another great, I believe this was another great screen pass to Tyrone Tracy, who goes for 20 yards. 3rd and 7 from the Green Bay 44. Still down by 6 with a little over 12 to play in the game. Winston hits Theo Johnson for 14 yards. I thought that was another great 3rd down conversion. And then 4th and 2 with a little over 9 to play at the Green Bay 22. Winston comes up big again, and Hodgins comes up big again with a 13-yard grab. A tough catch on a windy day. He was old reliable on this day. And then 3rd and 5 from the Giants 40. We're down by, this is the drive that ended in the pick. 3rd and 5, Winston completes to Theo Johnson for 11 yards on the first down. I don't know. It felt like we were going to score there. It really did feel like we were going to score. It's like it just had all the ingredients that are common to a scoring drive, a game-winning drive. And Kafka has said that if they did get the touchdown there, they would have gone for 2, and there would have been. The problem is, we're not good with, like, us on offense trying to get 2-point conversions. We're not good. So I don't imagine that we would have scored the 2-point conversion there. And then defensively, on the flip side of things, our defense cannot stop a 2-point conversion attempt. I don't think we've stopped one yet this year. So I still think we lose this game if we score there and go for 2. Just because even if you get the 2-point conversion, there's still, 40 some odd seconds left for Love to drive into field goal range. But weather conditions, maybe the Packers kicker misses it yet again. So I don't know. And then, 44 seconds left, 3rd and 6 from the Green Bay 14. Winston is picked off throwing to Hyatt. And then What's wild here is that we still had all 3 timeouts left, so again, that's good on Mike Kafka for being able to have those in his pocket to at least give you another chance. But this Packers fucking punter, dude. Oh my God. MVP? Like, he cranked the ball, placed it right on the sideline, so Gunner catches it and he has really nowhere to run, and took off a bunch of time on the clock in that run back. And so you had about 10 seconds left for Jameis to try and wind up and throw it. And of course he gets strip sacked. So that was the top plays for the Giants offense. Winston was 19 of 29, 201 yards and a pick. Should have had like 3 or 4 more. So his QB rating was 71 point, or his passer rating was 71.2, which is actually worse than Russell Wilson's passer rating for the season. But he did have a significantly higher QBR than Russell Wilson. So Tyrone Tracy, 19 carries, 88 yards, plus 4 catches and 51 yards. So he had almost 140 total yards from scrimmage, which is good to see. Devin Singletary added 16 carries, 44 yards, 2 touchdowns. Isaiah Hodgins, 5 catches on 6 targets for 57 yards. Theo, 3 catches on 4 targets, 36 yards. And sucks that we could not get Bellinger more in the mix in terms of throws. But Wan'Dale Robinson, 4 catches on 9 targets for 36 yards. It's just like, do you really think that Wan'Dale Robinson is worth a contract extension? Like, he should be the guy that's, I mean, he leads the team in targets, so it's obviously like the team was expecting him to be the top guy to go to, but like I've said multiple times, he's just limited in what he can do. So unless there's like a team friendly deal to be had, it's like I'm not like gonna get all butthurt by letting him walk in free agency. I'm just not. I just don't think it's gonna work here. So we talked about offensive line grades coming into this game. How did they do in the game? Andrew Thomas had a 68.8 PFF grade overall, allowed 1 sack and 1 pressure, was better in pass protection than he was in run blocking. John Runyon was better in run blocking than pass protection, 56.6 overall, allowed 1 QB hit, 1 pressure. JMS was way better in pass protection, not so great in run blocking, 53.5 overall, 0 sacks allowed, 0 hits, 0 hurries, 0 pressures allowed. Van Roten had probably the worst game of everyone in terms of hurries and pressures. 3 hurries, 3 pressures allowed, 39.9 in pass protection. But he was really good in run block, 64.3 grade. Jermaine Illuminor, 53.9 overall. He was probably the most consistent from run blocking to pass protection, other than Andrew Thomas. He did allow 1 sack, 1 hurry, 1 hit, and 3 pressures. 2 sacks allowed on 8 pressures is a decent game for the Giants O-line, especially with Micah Parsons in the mix. They had allowed 2 less pressures versus the Packers with 8, as opposed to the week before when they allowed 10 total pressures to the Bears, who have a worse pass rush, I would think, than the Packers. 14 sacks allowed in 11 games is a pretty solid job. Giants O-line climbing up the NFL offensive line rankings isn't a surprise. They've been on the doorstep of the top 10 of the league. And that first touchdown by Singletary was his first touchdown of the season, which is kind of wild coming in week 11. But Singletary's first game with multiple rushing touchdowns since November 13th, 2022, when he played for the Bills. Tyrone Tracy's 139 yards from scrimmage were the second most of his career. He had 150 at Pittsburgh as a rookie last season. In 2022, Isaiah Hodgins became the first Giants player to eclipse 100 receiving yards in a postseason game since Hakeem Nicks in Super Bowl 46. And Isaiah Hodgins, this season alone in 1 game, his 5 catches are equal to the total amount of catches that Jalin Hyatt has this season. Jalin Hyatt, who has been active in uniform for 11 games, 5 catches. Isaiah Hodgins, 4 days on the roster, 1 game started, 5 catches. So Jalin Hyatt can just take a long walk off a short pier. Anthony Rivardo, I feel like it's not a coincidence that Isaiah Hodgins was only signed back with the Giants after Brian Daboll was fired. My conspiracy theory is that there's some sort of bad blood between those two. Hodgins was inexplicably benched after a successful 2022 season. Yeah. You can't just like, I don't know, man. It's hard not to think that. Dan Schneier on X said, the Giants are the only team in the NFL to have scored 30 or more points versus the Eagles and Broncos in 2025. They're also the only team to score an opening drive and first quarter touchdown versus the Packers. All this in a 2-9 season. Can't overstate how bad this defense has been, and it's not just coaching. So coaching is a big part of it. Not being able to adjust and call a game plan that fits your personnel. But also, like, if your personnel is not executing your scheme, then maybe you need to tweak the scheme, right? No? Yeah. Big Blue VCR. There was a lot of chatter about, Giants, after Daboll's fired, who are the top head coaching candidates? We'll get to that list in a second. It's not a great list. But Big Blue VCR on X, there was a lot of talk about before Jay Glazer on NFL on Fox pregame, announced the short list of candidates. A lot of people were like, what about Packers defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley? And so Big Blue VCR kind of leaned into that and posted on X the following quote: in 1982, Ray Perkins won his last game against Philadelphia, and a defensive coordinator from northern New Jersey who grew up a Giants fan took over as head coach the next year. His name, Bill Parcells. Brian Daboll's last win as head coach was against Philadelphia. History doesn't repeat, but it does rhyme. Jeff Hafley, a New Jersey native. So that would be cool if we were able to get someone like Hafley to man the helm. But apparently, according to the short list from Jay Glazer, it's not. So let's segue to the defense and how they performed. Paulson Adebo was questionable. He was listed as out as he re-aggravated some injury during warmups. Tyler Newman was out. Kayvon Thibodeau was out due to a shoulder. Chauncey Golston was still out to the neck issue. And Nacho was out due to a toe, so they all didn't play on Sunday. Coming into the Green Bay game, this is via Big Blue Film Room. Cordell Flott has allowed a passer rating of 61.4 this season per PFF. That's fifth lowest among all cornerbacks. So, though he might not have been elite top-notch in the first few seasons here, it looks like he's turning the corner. And that is a lone bright spot in the secondary. And so if you want to reward that and say, hey, we're going to give you fair market price to come back. It's a matter of if you have good players, above average players, then you need to reward them and keep them as part of the core unit there. Deonte Banks, not part of the future. Cordell Flott, probably part of the future after what he's done this season. Hopefully it's just not a fluke. And he's not our CB1. He should be a CB2, CB3 Debo this year. It's just so fucking weird. Big Blue Film Room also said that Dexter Lawrence, coming into this Green Bay Packers game, had the 12th best PFF pass rushing grade, 84, higher than Nick Bonito, TJ Watt, and Jared Verse. Lawrence faces one of the highest double team rates in the NFL. So, this is like a long-standing debate and discussion that Giants fans have always had. Leonard Williams keeps getting all these high grades, but we're still losing and not getting the big money stats. And I know people are like, well, so no sacks and that means you're a bust. No, that's not the case at all. But judging by the limited film that I've watched on this of Dexter's performance in this game, he had some game-wrecking plays, just not quite getting there, just coming up a little short. There were a couple pressures where forces love to throw it early and throw it away. But, this is still probably his worst season, which would be like career highs for a lot of other players. So you have to keep that in perspective and keep that in mind. Trying to remind myself that it's not as bad as the numbers would indicate. And man, the numbers have been kind of all over the place with him, with Abdul Carter. It's just like, I don't know, the numbers say like you're doing well, but then why aren't we doing better as a unit? Giants Muse on X posted that Brian Burns heading into this game had more sacks than the rest of the team combined. It's not good. That is not good at all. Brian Burns obviously playing at another level, possible all pro level. He had another 2 sacks in this game, although I don't know. I don't think those should count. I mean, the one is towards the end of the game where Jordan Love is rolling out and knows that he doesn't want to throw the ball. It has to be like a sure 100% completion, and he didn't have that. Nothing was available, and so he knew that he didn't want to stop the clock, so he just went down. It was almost similar to what happened with Brett Favre and Michael Strahan in 2001, where Favre just took a dive, and it was Strahan. That was Strahan's record-breaking sack. So he's at 13 sacks now. Myles Garrett is at like 15 now. And the Browns are kind of in the similar situation as the Giants. So, even when you do have the money stat in terms of sacks, it's a team game, dude. You need the rest of the team to step up. Doug Analytics said that the D-line stunt rate and pressure difference leading into this game were as follows. The Giants used stunts at the... Come on, Neal. Just speak like a normal human being. The Giants use stunts at the second lowest rate, 10.7%, but have a plus 11.9% pressure difference when stunting versus not, which is 6th highest. So, the correlation, the insight there, we should run stunts more. But for whatever reason, they figure that when we run stunts, that leaves gaps open for mobile quarterbacks to scramble. I think that's the reasoning why we don't throw more stunts at it. But honest to God, I just don't know why. It's a lost season. Just mix it up. I mean, what I don't understand about the approach this season, just heading into the season, it's like Dable and Shane. Shane, you don't want to take many risks. It's a slippery slope there for the general manager. But for the coaches, it's like you were almost fired last year. You probably should have been fired last year. Just throw caution into the fucking wind, man. Just undo your belt and just have at it. And instead, they still play this cautious, soft bullshit. It's just like, I don't know. Why not just go out guns blazing? I don't know. To still not run stunts is just stupid, especially considering the success rate. In terms of Packers drives, they really had 7 drives. The 8th was just the kneel down towards the end of the game. Touchdowns on 4 of 7 drives. Not great, Bob. 12 plays, 62 yards, more than 7 minutes off the clock on their first touchdown drive. 10 plays, 84 yards on their second touchdown drive. So Malik Willis came in and looked like he handled the offense fairly well. Went off the right end for 16 yards in the first quarter with a little under 2 minutes left on a 3rd and 8 when they were down by 7. That was at the Giants 32, so that puts them in the red zone. Jacob Morley said this about Malik Willis's 1-yard touchdown pass to Christian Watson had a 16.8% completion probability. That is the 15th least probable completion of the season, and it is the shortest by distance pass in the top 20 of that list per Next Gen Stats. So, we just our luck and our fortunes. we don't got it. It's not a magical season by any means. We haven't really had a magical season since 2016, I'd say. 2011, 2016. In terms of like the ball bouncing our way, us getting the benefit of the doubt. And I don't know. It was 13-13 in the second quarter with 30 seconds left in the half when Jordan Love fumbled the snap. The ball was on the turf for what seemed like a frickin' eternity. No Giants players got any kind of push or pressure to get to the ball that was on the ground forever, which allows Jordan Love to not only pounce on the ball, recover it, like jump on it, but to get up and to complete a pass, or well, I thought it was a complete pass to the tight end Musgrave. I think it was Musgrave, who then takes 2 steps, turns upfield, drops, like ball comes out, wasn't forced out, he just dropped it, or let it slip out. Giants got it, recovered it at the Green Bay 41 or 42, and it's ruled not a fumble. It's ruled an incomplete pass. So sucks. And I guess it's not reviewable, or I don't know. I'm so confused by the whole replay system. It's just, it feels like it's so all over the place in terms of when you can throw the flag, when you can review something. You know, it's under 2 minutes in the first half, so like, shouldn't the booth call down and say, no, that's, you got it wrong, that's a fumble? There's 30 seconds left in the first half. I don't see us scoring a touchdown in 30 seconds from the Green Bay 41 or 42. We may be able to get in field goal range, but even at that point, I think Younghoe Koo probably misses it. So we go into the half all tied at 13. 2nd and 7 from the Giants, 38. There's under 13 minutes left in the third quarter. 2nd and 7, Jordan Love pass, incomplete deep left, intended for Matthew Golden, but there's a penalty on Dane Belton for defensive pass interference that totals 35 yards, and it takes them from a potential field goal to getting closer to a touchdown. With 45 seconds left in the third quarter, 3rd and 2 at the Green Bay 25, they're up by 6. Jordan Love throws a pass incomplete deep right to Christian Watson, which is defended by Nick Jones. So the fact that Nick Jones can make a play and we can't get Deonte Banks or anyone else to play well is just remarkable. In the fourth quarter, under 6 minutes left, 3rd and 10, Green Bay's 47-yard line. We're up by 1. Jordan Love, this is the big one. Jordan Love passes complete deep left to Savion Williams for 33 yards, tackled by Cordell Flott. So that was the one that ultimately, not the dagger, but, if we are able to knock the ball down, get a sack, make a play, get off the field there, then you have to think that the Giants' run game has been playing so well and doing so well that we would be able to put together a sustainable drive, double-digit plays, and either end the game or at least get additional points to force Green Bay to drive for the touchdown as opposed to a field goal. And nope, no dice. So Jordan Love was 13-24, 174 yards, 2 touchdowns, 105.2 QB rating. Malik Willis had a 118.7 QB rating, even though he was 2 for 2 for 6 yards. But he did have a touchdown and a scramble for 16 yards. So remember when I said that we should trade for Malik Willis? Do you remember that? And everyone lost their shit. Why would you trade him? Like, I don't know. I think he's got something, man. I think he's got something. I know it's like a limited amount of snaps on one drive, but it's like, would you rather have Malik Willis or Jameis Winston? I know everyone loves Jameis's personality and his leadership, but I think Malik Willis is more of an upside, but you'd have to give up picks. So I don't know. I think, I still believe that we should have traded for him and then have a competition with Dart, and you wouldn't have to sign Russell Wilson and Jameis, but whatever. Manuel Wilson, 11 carries, 40 yards, and a touch. Josh Jacobs, only 7 carries, 40 yards before he left with the injury. Bo Melton got an end around, 1 for 17 yards. Chris Brooks had a carry for 8 yards. A lot of drops, though. Matthew Golden only had 1 catch on 3 targets. Romeo Dobbs, 4 catches on 8 targets. But Christian Watson was the killer. 4 catches on 5 targets, 2 touchdowns. So, I think this was his first game back. I could be wrong about that. It's one of those things where it's like, timing is everything. Burns had 4 QB hits in a pass defended Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles had another good game. Not as great as his last game, but against Chicago. But he is showing enough to me to make me think that he'd be a good depth piece moving forward, and that we should probably try and retain him just for good depth purposes. Okereke had 7 combined tackles, 6 solo. Javon Holland, 5 combined tackles. Cordell Flott had a pass defended. Deonte Banks actually did have a pass defended after all that long rant I went on. He actually did bat away a ball. Oh my gosh. Crown his ass. Roy Robertson Harris had a QB hit, as did Abdul Carter, and Dexter Lawrence had 2 QB hits. So, but again, Abdul Carter 1 tackle. Dexter Lawrence 1 tackle. It's just not. They're always at the bottom of the box score, dude. It's just, I don't know. A lot of close but no cigars, which is only good for horseshoes and hand grenades. I don't think that's the expression. Anthony Rivardo posted on X that quarterbacks, when targeting Deonte Banks in coverage this season, are 20 of 23 for an 87% completion percentage, for 270 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a 155.2 passer rating. Which I thought 153 was as high as a passer rating can go, but it might be 158. So they're damn near perfect when targeting Deonte Banks. Doug Analytics posted some really fun facts about Deonte Banks' numbers as it relates to catch rate over expected, CROE, and target rate versus corners. Deonte Banks has been targeted on just 9.9% of his coverage snaps. That's the 7th lowest. But on those targets, he's only allowed 1.6 yards of separation, which is the 2nd best, yet has given up 14 catches. With that level of tight coverage, Deonte Banks was expected to allow a 42% catch rate, but he's allowed 70% for a league worst 28% catch rate over expected. Please get the hell off my roster. Thanks so much. Whew. I mean, the only saving grace for Deonte Banks is that maybe they do go with a defensive coordinator that can come in and be more aggressive and use a lot of more press man-to-man, and then we'll see a different kind of Deonte Banks. But, I mean, Jesus Christ. There's I could see a player having slightly worse performance in a different scheme. I cannot see it being this bad, dude. I mean, this is like exponentially worse. Like, okay, we're not catering to your strengths, but like, you're this weak otherwise? This is why I don't have confidence in Joe Schoen, because it's like, what kind of conversations are you having with these players? And I guess, a lot of times during the draft, you're not having a lot of conversations with a lot of players. There are only so many visits you're allowed, right? There's 30 visits that you're allowed. And the majority of those visits come from 1st and 2nd rounders. But at the same time, so it's understandable that you would miss on a character issue or a red flag with a prospect that's a 5th rounder or 6th rounder or 7th rounder, because you're not having visits with them. You're not being as intimate with them. You're not, there's not that level of engaging conversation that you're having with them. But with potential 1st rounders and having conversations with them, and then turning around and saying, oh yeah, these are the guys that represent what we stand for, which is that stupid fucking motto that they're using. I really would like them next season to just strip everything down from the facilities. Everything. Just down. Any kind of words, down. 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 The turnover chest. Be a pirate. Smart, tough, dependable. None of these motherfuckers are smart, tough, and dependable. They have not shown that. If they are, they're not proving it on the field. And it doesn't sound like they're doing it in practice either. So, did you have a conversation with Deonte Banks and you came away from that and said, yep, this guy's smart, tough, and dependable? You had a conversation with Jalin Hyatt and said, yep, smart, tough, and dependable. I mean, just, First of all, smart, tough, and dependable stands for STD. That's the acronym on that one. So maybe just nix that real quick. Let's get the penicillin out, or whatever kind of shot you got to take to get rid of the STD mindset. And all the other bullshit that you have, all the other words that you have in the stadium and the facility. You keep the pictures up, pictures of the legends, past legends, because that should be inspiring enough. It's like, that guy won an MVP. That guy won a Super Bowl. That guy's the franchise leader. And you don't need words. Tom Coughlin, it's just like, he wasn't into a lot of, like, he's a great motivator, right? Of men. But I don't, like, did we have a lot of this, like, forced, inorganic, toxic bullshit that they keep throwing around? It's like, no one is embodying this right now. Literally no one is embodying what you're trying to sell. So, like, let's just scrap all that. Scrap all the words. Scrap all the words. Actions. That should be the only word that they put up across the facility. Actions. No more words. No more talk. Action. Prove it. Packers converted 7 of 11 third downs, as we mentioned, and scored touchdowns on all 4 trips to the red zone. So red zone defense still sucks. Packers have now scored a league-high 111 points in the fourth quarter, while the Giants have allowed 123 points, the most in the NFL. Fourth quarter, still an issue. So a lot of people are saying, it's another fourth quarter lead blown. I mean, it's like, you had to know when we're up by 1 that the defense is not going to stop the Packers in any way, and we're definitely going to go down. It's just like, are we going to be able to have enough time to come back and win? We did, and then Jalin Hyatt. This is a graphic from, I don't know who, I think it's Doug Analytics, but passing and rushing defense for this season, in terms of rushing expected points added per play allowed, and drop back expected points allowed per play allowed. So it's rushing and passing and rushing defense. And I know you can't see this, but hot damn, we are in the bottom left quadrant. We are in the negative. So just giving up a lot of rushing yards over expected, a lot of passing yards over expected in the fourth quarter. That is something that it's inexplicable how it continues to happen. Like, so many good coaches out there, even bad coaches, would be able to make a fucking adjustment in the fourth quarter. I mean, you would think it would have happened after the Cowboys game. You definitely would have thought it would have happened after the friggin' Broncos game. And then to have it in the Bears game, and then also in this game, and, it's, man. It's like, and everyone's like, well, Shane Bowen has to be. I feel like we've said that after every loss. Shane Bowen has to be fired, right? Shane Bowen has to be fired, right? And we thought, okay, well, Dable's fired, so now Kafka can come in and fire Bowen, because Dable wasn't going to fire Bowen, because then that'll make him look bad and you can't use Bowen as a scapegoat, blah, blah, blah. Kafka's now kind of backtracking. It was like, we're going to evaluate everything no, we're going to attack the weak. It's like, to be honest, I believe Kafka probably just needs more time to figure out who is the defensive coordinator once Bowen's gone. Should that take you more than a week? No. But you have to remember that, like, Kafka's just been strictly game planning with the offense. He was the offensive coordinator, so he's not dealing with the entire team, the other 2 units. You got to give him a little more than a week to figure it out and do his due diligence and investigate what's going on the defensive side of the ball. But you do, like, I don't know that, like, Andre Patterson doesn't seem like he would be, everyone keeps saying Andre Patterson, but from what I've seen and heard, it's like, is this the guy that is going to be able to call a better scheme? There's another name that's been tossed around, Marquand Manuel. I think he was co-defensive coordinator. It's like, it's between those 2, it seems like, if you were to move on. My guess is wait till Paulson Adebo gets back and then see how the defense plays with Adebo back in the mix. I don't know, dude. Because that's when things went south for the Giants season, believe it or not, is when Paulson Adebo left in that Broncos game. The moment that Paulson Adebo got hurt and left that game, the Giants defense has been atrocious with Deonte Banks in the rotation. So is it really just one player? No, it can't be that. But I guess, Adebo was probably not going to play in this game before he tweaked whatever. So it's interesting to see if he'll be back for the next game. But seeing as you're playing the Lions and the Patriots, two of the better teams in the league offensively, I don't see our defense getting better, regardless of who the defensive coordinator is. So just move on. It's like such a foregone conclusion that it's like, I don't know, what more do you need to see, dude? Just move on. And at this point, whoever, sit them both down and be like, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Okay, I like what your plan is. Let's go. We're out of the season's over. we're essentially eliminated. So let's just fucking get it over with and at least just show us something cool and play more aggressive. I guess they played a little more aggressive defensively in this game where they're not just rushing 3 and dropping 8. They are rushing 4. I don't know if I think they rushed 5, but my God, I watch other games and I see a corner, backside, blindside blitz for a sack. I see a safety like Kyle Hamilton from the Ravens sacking Shedeur Sanders, coming up the gut and doing a spin move. It's just like, I just see other cool shit that defenses are doing, and we don't have any of that. There's just 0 wrinkles, 0 disguises. It's like, we're just going to line up and go. It's so boring and vanilla and bland. And this has been the Giants defense for how long now? Minus whatever Wink Martindale was dialing up. It's just like, we have not had a good defense in a very long time. Dugout Analytics gave us fans more fuel for the fire, saying the Giants defense has allowed an abysmal plus 0.15 expected points added per rush this season. That's the worst in the league and roughly equivalent to facing the 11th best passing offense. They've allowed a 48.1% rushing success rate, the second worst in the league behind Dallas. He went on to say, not only is the Giants' 0.15 expected points added per rush allowed the worst this season, it's the worst through the first 11 weeks of any season since at least 2000. The next worst was the 2022 Browns at 0.125 EPA per rush allowed, which is interesting because I feel like the 2022 Browns were really good defensively. But am I thinking about the 2023 Browns? That might be it. Only 4 other defenses have ever been worse than 0.10 EPA per rush. So I guess the Browns will be included in that. And then you have 3 more defenses that are worse than the current New York Football Giants in 2025. But yet, you really think that no other defensive coordinator could do worse than that? It's like, you're already at the bottom of the barrel, dude. You might as well just chuck whatever you got. Hey, Manuel Marquez and Dre Patterson, you're co-defensive coordinator. I need you guys to put your heads together and figure out. Take a look at, you should know what Shane Bowen's shortcomings are and what his flaws are and how you would do things differently. You're not taking mental notes and internal notes and saying, okay, I wouldn't have done that, wouldn't have done this, wouldn't have done that. How would you do things differently? Now's your opportunity. These should be auditions for next season. This should be auditioning. Mike Kafka is auditioning. If he wins this game, it's like, holy smokes, dude. But he didn't win this game, and defense is still an issue, and he continues to, for Mike Kafka now, it's like Shane Bowen is a detriment to the team. He is not making your defense better. You couldn't do any worse, and if you do worse, so what? You went out trying something different. I just don't understand why you would hold on to him like this. I don't get it. Bobby Skinner said 3 issues with the Giants defense outside of Shane Bowen. Number 1, the run defense sucks, and the Giants made no effort to improve this offseason after 3 straight bad seasons of run defense. No real linebacker added, and added pass rushing D tackles in Roy Robertson Harris and Darius Alexander. The secondary is simply terrible with Paulson Adebo out. Giants are rotating Deonte Banks and Corey Black, and it's hard to call a great defense when an offense can just attack and spot. That spot, Andrew Phillips has been bad in coverage. The safeties don't make plays. Holland is a good player, but his lone interception in the last 3 seasons was a Hail Mary. So you thought you were getting a ball hawk in Tyler Nubin. He has not been a ball hawk. And appears lost most of the time. Drew Phillips was a dog last year that we all thought was going to take the next step. He's another example of a rookie that had a promising rookie first year, and then in the second year, it's a noted drop-off where you're just like, okay, it's another one that we're probably not going to, doesn't look good. So, man. And then 3, pass rush is not winning in the way it should with the players they have. Abdul Carter was the most consistent, but his last 3 games have been quiet. I'd say his last 3 games have been some of his worst. Dexter Lawrence hasn't had a game where he's totally dominated. You know, there's some clips floating around of him like getting a great push on this Packers offensive line, but still just coming up, not quite getting there. And then Kayvon has 0 sacks and 1 QB hit in Giants' last 7 games. Whoa. After 2.5 sacks and 5 QB hits in the first 4 games. So I think he hurt himself and just refused to come out of the game, or was just trying to play through pain, and then altered his game to account for the injury. That's my theory. And then there's a cool graphic that'll make you feel good about the defense. Most consecutive games with 20-plus points and a loss since 1970. You have the 2002 Bengals, who had 5 consecutive games with scoring 20-plus points and losing. You have the 2012 Lions that also had 5. You have the 49ers with 6 over the course of 1999 and 2000. And you have the New York Football Giants this season, 2025, with 5 consecutive games where we've scored 20 or more points on offense and have lost. Hard to do, apparently. Super hard to do, but Shane Bowen, hats off, my man. Special teams sucked. Younghoe Koo I have 0 confidence in him. He missed a 48-yard extra point attempt late in the first half that went wide left. Not that it would have made a ton of difference, I don't think, if you had a better defense, maybe. I think once you got knocked back, you had the penalty. So he makes it. He gets pushed back. It's from 33 to 48. I think I would have scrapped that and said, can we go for 2 now? I think you have the ability to do that from the 12. I would much rather do that than have him attempted an extra point from that distance. I think anything more than 40 yards, the odds are extremely low of him hitting that, especially in that wind. If you go for 2 there, not to say that we would make it, we're horrible on 2-point attempts, but if we do make it there, you're looking at, it would be 15-13. Maybe you kick the field goal at the end of the first half. No. When we have that 4th down at the 10, you kick a field goal there. So there'd be 18-13. So 19. Yeah, I don't think it still would not make a difference because our defense blows. Jamie Gillen really stinks, and what's most unfortunate about it is that his contract is awful. He has one of the highest paid contracts for a punter, and he's not that good. Same with Graham Gano. He's a very highly paid kicker who's not that good, that we need to cut. And what stinks about this is that the Giants have an out before next season, the 2026 season, but it would incur about $2.13 million in dead cap. I still think that's worth it. The cap hit would be $3.3 million if we bail on him, or if we keep him for 2026, and then it's $3.5 million if we keep him in 2027. He's not going to be a free agent, unrestricted free agent, until 2028. So I would just cut ties, take on the 2.1, and then draft. You really just got to draft the top kicker and the top punter in this in this draft. And that's why it would have been nice if we could have gotten some later round picks, some sixth round picks, 7th round picks, so that we don't feel like we're wasting picks on punters and kickers. But You can't have Gano and Gillen back next year if you plan to compete and win games. It just cost you too many games. Jamie Gillen was just bad in this game. So that's the Packers game. Looking ahead to the Lions game in Week 12, it will be in Detroit, Motown, Motor City. Giants are now 2-9. If you go by the expected win-loss from Pro Football Reference, we should be 4-7, and we would actually be in the lurking column. Have the playoff hunt, playoff race graphics that are circulating. We could be 4-7, and I think a lot of people would agree that we could be 6-5 or 5-6. That's not crazy to think about. So that would put us, right on the precipice, right on the edge. We're in the hunt and lurking, and instead we're in the, as Kyle Brandt said on Good Morning Football, we're in the Cabo column. We got players thinking about what kind of Mai Tai, how many Mai Tais they're going to down in Cabo. Lions are 6-3. They're in third place in the NFC North. Bears are in first. Packers are in second. If we go by Pro Football Reference's simple rating system, the Giants are better than the Falcons, Commanders, Panthers, and Saints. Falcons are 3-7. Commanders are 3-8. Panthers are 6-5 somehow, and the Saints are 2-8. So, if you look at the simple rating system just for the offense, the Giants' offense is better than the Packers, bonkers, who are 6-3-1, second place. Commanders at 3-8, Vikings at 4-6, Falcons at 3-7, Panthers at 6-5, and Saints at 2-8. So, offense doing what they can do best. Defensive simple rating system, we have the second worst defense in the NFL, only better than the Cowboys. And it's a one-game sample set because I don't think they had Quinnen Williams and was it Logan Wilson for that game against the Cardinals before they had the bye, but then they played last night against the Raiders and shellacked them, and the defense only allowed 16 points. So, the Cowboys defense appears to be getting better, I think. Maybe, question mark? I mean, the Raiders are just really bad and awful, so I don't think that's a good litmus test. In terms of head-to-head, the Lions lead the series with the Giants, 25 wins to 21 losses and 1 tie. We are 0-1 against the Lions in the postseason. That dates back to 1935. I pulled the head-to-head, so it's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, last 6 matchups against the Lions. We lost 31-18 in 2022. That was really, I believe, the turning point for the Lions, and as it turns out, for the Giants, because that was, I think we were like 7-1, 6-1, 6-2, 7-2 at that point. In November of 2022, the Lions were like 2-7 at that point, and then that's when they went on that run in 2022 and finished really strong. And that's when their run of success really started, was against us, and that's when our downfall pretty much happened. Before that, it was the October 2019 game. This was Daniel Jones' rookie season along with Darius Slayton. We lost 31-26, very winnable game that we let slip away. September 2017, we lost 24-10 at home, and then we also lost we won at home the previous season in 2016, 17-6. That was the week before Christmas. Nice little gift there. And then we were at Detroit in 2014. I think this was the season opener in 2014 in Detroit. We got crushed 35-14. And then we won at home in 2013. Oh no, at Detroit in 2013. This was right around Christmas 2013, 23-20. So that was a nice little early Christmas gift in 2013. But yeah, so we're 2-4 in our last 6 since winning the Super Bowl against Detroit. Crazy to think that we're 2 of the oldest franchises and have played just around, less than 50 times? Change that. I want to play Detroit. We should be playing Detroit every year, just like we should be playing Chicago every year. I just love playing the NFC North, even though we have sucked against them. So the Lions get off to that bad start in Green Bay, losing by 2 scores. and we all thought, oh, Green Bay is the favorite and to win the Super Bowl. They come back and they beat the shit out of the Bears, 52-21, sticking it to former offensive coordinator Ben Johnson. That was probably their best game offensively, if we're going by expected points. No, it was their second best game. Their actual best offensive game came against the Commanders later in Week 10. They were at Baltimore in Week 3 and came away with the dub, 38-30. Offense had another great game, over 400 total yards and 24 first downs, more than 224 rushing yards, which was second only to that Commanders game. Week 4, they blew out the Browns 34-10. Offense was kind of on the quieter side, and the defense had themselves a day. 3 turnovers forced, only allowed 79 rushing yards and less than 250 total yards in that game. Browns offense is pretty garbage. So was that the best game that the defense had? Yes, it was. Week 4 against the Browns at home. Then they went to Cincinnati in early October to play the Bengals. They lost by, so they won by 13, 2 scores against Cincinnati. Again, I don't think Joe Burrow was playing at this point. And offense had a pretty decent day. Defense got 3 turnovers and only allowed 85 yards rushing. So the offense played well. Defense, okay. I think the turnovers helped a lot. Week 6, they lose to the Chiefs. This is when the Chiefs started to have their little resurgence that got everyone talking about how they're not dead yet. And then now they're going to go on a run, and they've kind of stumbled since then. But Lions lose in Kansas City 30-17. Offense had less than 300 yards. Defense allowed 26 first downs. Whoa. And 355 total yards. Not great effort from the defense. I think, that was their worst game of the season, was against the Chiefs in Kansas City in Week 6. Week 7, they beat the Bucs 24-9. This was a really amazing performance from the defense. This was the second best performance in terms of expected points contributed from the defense in 2025. Offense tallied 164 rushing yards on the day, while only allowing 41 rushing yards from Tampa Bay and getting 2 turnovers. They hit the bye week at 5-2. They come out and then they lose to the freaking Vikings, dude, just to kick off November, 27-24. Offense only had 15 first downs and a little over 300 yards, only mustered 65 yards on the ground. Meanwhile, the defense allowed 142 yards on the ground. So I believe this is one of the worst performances from the offense and the defense, really. And then on my birthday, November 9th, in Week 10, they beat the Commanders 44-22. This was their best game offensively, put up 546 total yards, 30 first downs, 226 yards on the ground. Defense only allowed 93 yards on the ground and less than 200 yards passing, along with 14 first downs. Ooh, baby. Just put a whooping on Washington. And then this past week in Philadelphia against the Eagles, they lose 16-9. Offense couldn't do much. They went for it on 4th down a bunch and came up with a goose egg. 74 yards on the ground, only 13 first downs. The defense allowed 148 yards rushing, but only 272 total yards. And it ended in such a weak fashion. Just like Lions, we're looking to get the ball back. Incomplete pass to A.J. Brown from Jalen Hurts, and they call it bullshit pass interference call. And that ends the game, essentially. So, the refs. Gotta love them. Do you, though? Team ranks. In terms of team ranks, Giants are 0-6 on the road. So, not looking good for our prospects, even if we do get Jackson Dart back in the mix. Lions are 3-1 at home, and they have scored the 4th most points per game. They have allowed the 10th fewest. I forget how to. 10th fewest points allowed per game. They're +5 in takeaway differential, which is good enough for 8th in the league. They're 9th in passing yards per game, 7th in rushing yards per game, 8th in defensive passing yards allowed per game, and 8th in defensive rushing yards allowed per game. They are top 10 basically across the board. Oof. Offense is basically a top 5 unit. They have the 3rd most yards per play, or 3rd highest yards per play. They're tied for the 3rd least turnovers, and they have the 3rd lowest turnover percentage. They're 9th in scoring percentage, 8th in expected points contributed. They're a better passing unit than they are a rushing attack. Passing offense is 9th in expected points. The rushing offense is 19th. They're tied for the 5th lowest 3rd down percentage, which is interesting, and they're 14th in 4th down percentage. I assume having gone like 0 for 4 and 0 for 5 on 4th down versus the Eagles, that might have contributed to them being now closer to the league average in 4th down percentage. But that's really curious, interesting stat. Makes me think that, they have a tendency to, when they are at midfield or in opponent territory, they know that they're probably going for it on 4th down. So that's why the 3rd down conversion might not be as high as expected. But they are tied for the 5th highest red zone percentage. So when they get in the red zone, they scoring, and we can't stop it. So it could get ugly. Jared Goff is 4th in passer rating, 8th in passing yards and passing yards per game, 6th in yards per pass attempt, and he's tied for 2nd in passing touchdowns, 5th in completion percentage, and 3rd in touchdown percentage through the air. I have a feeling he's going to come out and put on a goddamn show, a light show, an air show, if you will. Jahmyr Gibbs is tied for 4th in rushing touchdowns, 6th in yards per rushing attempt, 10th in total rushing yards and rushing yards per game, 7th in yards from scrimmage, and 9th in yards per touch. I could very easily see him going off for like easily eclipse 100 by himself, but we're looking at in the 150 to 200 range, I think. Amon-Ra St. Brown is 6th in total receptions, 8th in receiving yards, total receiving yards, and receiving yards per game, 2nd in receiving touchdowns, and he's tied for 10th in total touchdowns, and he's 3rd in yards per touch. And I would say, let's just shift our coverage and really double team and focus on Amon-Ra. But then you have a little guy named, well, he's not so little, but he's quick as shit, Jameson Williams, who's 3rd in yards per reception, 18.1 yards per reception. So I think that 3-headed monster is just going to eat us alive, dude. It's like you stop the run, you got to worry about St. Brown. You stop Amon-Ra, you got Jameson Williams over the top. So speed kills, and Jahmyr Gibbs and Jameson Williams are 2 of the fastest motherfuckers on the planet, and I think they're going to just burn us to bits. The Lions defense is 6th in expected points contributed. I know a lot of attention gets paid to the offense and how many points they score. The defense, is a top 10 unit. They've allowed the 5th lowest yards per play, the 5th lowest net yards per pass attempt. They're top 10 in passing touchdowns allowed, and they have the highest, but interestingly enough, they have the highest average depth of target. So at least that makes me think that Jameis Winston can attack down the field. Just attack down the field. They do allow the fewest yards after catch. So my guess is you're going to see a lot of contested balls, where it's tight coverage. And if they do allow the catch, they're bringing you down right away. And that's because they have the fewest missed tackles in the NFL, like 40 through 11 weeks, which is impressive. They're 5th in sacks, 9th in presser percentage, but they're outside the top 10 in blitz percentage, hurry percentage, and QB knockdown percentage, which is interesting. So it's like when they get a pressure, they don't blitz a ton, but when they get pressure, they usually get a sack as opposed to a hurry or just a knockdown. The defense is tied for 5th in the fewest rushing touchdowns allowed. They're tied for 4th in the lowest rushing yards per attempt, 5th in rushing defense by expected points contributed. So my guess is that our game plan from last week probably not going to work this week, but who's to say? Are we going to still be able to run the ball 25, 30, 35 times in this game? I don't know, dude, because I feel like this Giants defense, this is like the big blowout game. Like we kind of had it in the second Eagles game. I feel like that you're really going to see it against the Lions in Detroit this week, where it's like they're just giving up tons of yards, tons of points. And when you're down by multiple scores, I'm thinking maybe you still stick with the run when you're down by 7. Maybe you still stick with the run when you're down by 10, but when it's 14, 17 points, are you still going to run the ball? My guess is if it's the first half, sure, why not? If it's the third quarter, maybe, but so I would think that our rushing attack wouldn't have the same level of success that we did against Green Bay. Lions defense has the 5th lowest scoring percentage. They're tied for the 3rd lowest third down percentage and the 9th lowest fourth down percentage, but they have the 8th highest red zone percentage. So to me, that says, Jameis Winston, it's your time to shine. Although I guess Jackson Dart did clear concussion protocol, and it's like, hey, welcome back. Now attack down the field. So I would say, Mike Kafka, this is another opportunity for you to say, we're not going to have a lot of designed runs with Jackson Dart because that's been a point of contention. And we're going to attack down the field, and we're going to try to avoid getting into third down and fourth down situations. So it's like throw the ball at the sticks on first down, throw the ball beyond the sticks on second down, throw the ball. So you might see a lot of attempts out of Jackson Dart. I'm thinking, he gets 40 plus pass attempts, and I think he could get close to 300 yards passing. And it's just a matter of, can we get out of, just don't get into third down and fourth down. I think you're okay with it last week because the weather's not great and passing is going to be a challenge. And, it's cold, and now you're in a dome, dude. So let her rip. We don't have to worry so much about the run. And, I guess maybe you get Darius Slayton back, so then that's a positive. Who knows? But yeah, you just got to attack down the field. Don't get into third down. Don't get into fourth down. And once you get into that red zone, it's end zone or bust. None of this underneath shit. Lions defense is also tied for the fewest plays per drive and the fewest time per drive. So my guess is, they're getting off the field pretty quick. 4th lowest yards per drive and tied for the 9th least points per drive. So their defense is a top 10 unit for sure. Kirby Joseph is tied for the 3rd most interceptions in the league. Jack Campbell is 6th in solo tackles, 4th in total tackles, and tied for 3rd in fumbles forced. Aiden Hutchinson is tied for the most forced fumbles and tied for the 6th most sacks. Those are the 3 dudes that you want to keep an eye on. Anzalonia, of course, is always all over the field making plays. Special teams, they have the 5th lowest field goal percentage, which is not great for my fantasy team because I think I have, what's his name? Jake Bates? Master Bates. So if the defense is going to stand a chance in this game, well, you got to keep them out of the red zone and just hope that their kicker misses field goals. They're also 8th. The Lions are 8th in net yards per punt, and they have 0 touchbacks on punts, and they have the 2nd highest inside the 20 percentage. So my guess is even if the defense does able to make a stop, that their punting unit is just outstanding. Like, they don't punt a lot, but when they do, it's like they're not going to kick it into the end zone. So we're going to have a lot of starting position inside our 10, inside our 5, inside our 20. So that's the Lions preview, and then we can briefly go over this bullshit list of head coaching candidates. Jay Glazer on the Fox pregame show provided an early list of names the Giants could target at head coach: Mike McCarthy, Matt Nagy, Arthur Smith, Steve Spagnuolo, Lou Anarumo, and Chris Shula. The first 3, to me, well, 2 of the first 3 are hard no's. Mike McCarthy's a soft no. Steve Spagnuolo, I can't see him wanting to come back here and trying to turn things around, especially when, his first go around with the Rams wasn't great. It's just, maybe he's just a defensive coordinator, and that's just fine. And it's like, why leave a good situation? You guys are always winning in Kansas City. You are being lauded. You're probably on a Hall of Fame trajectory if you stay with the Chiefs. There's a possibility of another Super Bowl ring. But, I think he's in his 60s, maybe early 70s. Is that something you want to come to a franchise that's in the tank, in the toilet, and be subject to all this bullshit again? I don't know. I don't see it. Lou Anarumo, I think he was in the running in 2022. And, got run out of town in Cincinnati and then has had a reawakening with the Colts. So I don't know. Chris Shula, I guess, I forget where he's from, but that the last two seem to be the two that fans are a little more high on, Anarumo and Shula, but overall, it's just a big old barf emoji from everyone involved. Just like everyone who's heard that news, just like, oh my God, light me on fire. So, not really crazy about it. And it's Jay Glazer reporting, and Jay Glazer is like never fucking wrong, dude. When he makes a report, it's pretty much 100% accurate. So the fact that our organization and franchise is in such shambles, just a pile of rubble, and that we're just going to continue going down this really dark, gnarly path is just makes me not want to follow the team anymore. It's just like you have been successfully hoodwinking us, the fan base. The Giants organization has been hoodwinking us for over almost 2 decades now. We're going almost 2 decades. We're approaching year 15 of just like you selling us on something, and like I'm just not buying it. I didn't buy it heading into this season. The ceiling I had for us was 9-8. And that's like everything goes right. And shit, man, like if we don't blow the games against Dallas, Denver, Chicago, you're looking at we're 5-6. And can you go 4-2 down the stretch? Probably, if you just had a better defensive coordinator. So, but you can't use that as an excuse to keep Shane and be like, well, see? It's like, no. A lot of your decisions have impacted how the things are going. Like, sure, a better defensive coordinator probably doesn't lose us all of those games that we had the blown leads, but you still have players in there that are not executing and are not giving a shit. And that's on you. And the inability to figure out the kicker situation, the wide receiver situation, the secondary, like it's not just one glaring issue. There's a lot of glaring issues that have not been that either have been addressed and they've been addressed poorly and it hasn't worked out, or you just have ignored it because you're so hyper focused on this one unit. It's like, well, look, I fixed the D line. Okay, but then your linebackers and secondary are garbage. All right, I fixed the offensive line. Okay, but your wide receivers are not getting the kind of separation and making plays and dropping balls, and I don't know. So that's super discouraging to see that head coaching list. And my only silver lining on that, the spin I could put on it, is that was fed to Glazer from a Joe Schoen, and ownership sees that, sees the fans' reaction, and is like, okay, Joe Schoen, kindly, here's an envelope. Yep, those are pink papers. You gone. Move along, little doggy. But it turns out, like we talked about that Jason Smith 46 whatever account that everyone thinks is Joe Schoen's burner, and it's like, well, there was talk about guys falling asleep in meetings on that burner account, or on that account that claims it's not a burner but probably is a burner. And then this comes out, the news comes out that Abdul Carter is falling asleep in a meeting, and it's like, oh, maybe this is not necessarily Joe Schoen, but it's someone inside the building that has this knowledge and has seen it firsthand. Such a wild. God, this is why I hate losing football, because all this shit gets aired out. All your dirty laundry gets aired out when you play losing football. Barf. Giant Insider on X said Giants don't have much cap money entering next year, around $18 million. Players like Bobby Okereke, John Runyon Jr., Devin Singletary, Graham Gano, James Hudson could be released. It's like, you can live without Hudson, probably. You can live without Gano. Singletary would be a tough loss, just because I think he does provide a nice change of pace, a nice boost. His ability to force missed tackles is incredible. So if you ever need like a short down and distance, great on short distance goal to go, when you need a yard or two, he can get it for you. So that would suck. But John Runyon Jr. is the one that out of this group you feel probably the strongest about, with Bobby Okereke is a very close second. Okereke makes a lot of tackles. Are they tackles for loss? Is he getting to the quarterback? Is he great in coverage? He had that really standout year in 2023, his first year. But like most free agents that the Giants have signed, they all have a strong first year. Just like all their draft picks have a strong first year. And then they steadily decline over the remainder of their contract with them. So I'll take a quick look at Okereke's numbers. Really great, solid first year. Second year was all right. Only played in 12 games of 17. And he's less. So he's played 11 games this season and 12 games last season. And last season was a noted decline noted decline in numbers and productivity. 2023 played all 17 games with a friggin' broken rib, had 2 picks, 10 passes defended, 4 forced fumbles, 2.5 sacks, 149 combined tackles, 6 QB hits, 11 tackles for loss. 2024, he played in 12 games, 3 passes defended, 3 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, 2 sacks, 93 combined tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 2 QB hits. In 2025, 11 games played, only 2 passes defended, 0 forced fumbles, 0 fumble recoveries, 1 sack, 95 combined tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 1 QB hit. So, to me, that's a worse. He's gotten worse every season. I know he has more tackles in 11 games than he did in all 12 last season, but he has less sacks, less passes defended, less forced fumbles, fumble recoveries, interceptions, tackles for loss, QB hits. It's like, I don't know, man. I mean, I understand that he's missing his compadre and Micah McFadden. He hasn't had his guy next to him all season, but if you look at some of the advanced statistics, he's allowing a 63.2% completion percentage, 10.3 yards per completion, 2 touchdowns, a 99.5 QB rating allowed, which is the worst of his stints so far with the Giants. Average depth of target is 4.4 yards, which is more than twice what he's seen in the previous 2 seasons. And he blitzed 69 times in 2023, and he's only blitzed 16 times through 11 games in 2025. Just please strap Shane Bowen to a rocket and shoot him into Jupiter. 0 hurries, 0 knockdowns, 0 bats and pass rush, 1 pressure. I guess you can attribute a lot of the decline in production to not having Micah next to him, because Micah is your guy in coverage. And so they feel stronger about having Bobby O in coverage than they do some other linebacker. And so he's not allowed to get after the quarterback and on blitzes or pressures, or I guess that's one explanation. But man, dude, I mean, this is the worst passer rating allowed of his career, 99.5. And yeah, a lot of air yards, not so much yards after carry, but 69 blitzes in 2023. It was the highest of his career by a good 30. The next highest blitz total he had was in 2021. He had 38 blitzes. God bless you, Wink Martindale. 69 blitzes. He had 2 hurries, 4 knockdowns, 1 batted pass, 9 pressures. So tough to say, but my gut says that you'd probably not extend him and move on from him. And just, that's got to be a top priority in the draft. And then Runyon, similar situation, I think, with Runyon. It's like he's gotten better. I believe he's gotten better year to year with the Giants, but take a look anyway. So in 2024 was his first year. He played in 13 games. It was the second worst season of his career, behind his rookie season in 2020 when he didn't have any starts. So this is really, as a full-time starter, 2024 was his worst season as a full-time starter. And then thus far this year, hard to say, but I think he's playing better than what he was last season. So my guess is that you should probably, you know, I don't think he's going to be like a super long term, are you going to extend him? Tough to say. It's almost like, you're going to extend Illuminor. You should extend Illuminor. And maybe well, let's see. All right, so he has, we do have a potential out before next season. So after this season, we could release him and only take on $2.5 million in dead cap. And if we don't, it's going to be a cap hit of $11.75 million. And then he'll become a free agent. So I think you just let it play out, right? I mean, if he had another year this year like he did last year, then I think, okay, you move on. But I think he's shown some decent strides this season, and it would be nice to return 3 of 5 as opposed to 2 of 5. Yeah, you have Marcus Bowe, so Marcus Bowe could fill in at a guard position to replace Van Roten, but I would still go guard again in this draft. So I would retain Runyon, think long and hard about Bobby Okereke. Let's see what his contract situation is. Boom, 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 boom. Okereke also has 1 year left on his contract next season with a cap hit of $14.4 million. Whoa. And his dead cap would be $5.4 million. That is tough to see. I do not like that at all. So, yeah, possibility though. You got to free up space somehow. I tell you what, I know I have a flair for the dramatic, that's for damn sure, but this is such a critical point in Giants franchise history. Because if they retain Shane and hire Mike McCarthy as the head coach, you are going down a really dangerous fucking path. We are already so far down a really dark hole that you're just digging a deeper hole by doing that. And if you decide to keep players like Okereke and that are just, they're not, I don't know, man. Like, let me see if I can find the Pro Football Focus grade on him. 10th out of 81 linebackers and solo tackles, 25th in sacks, 8th in assists, 32nd in forced fumbles, which is, is this season? I hope this is this season. His overall grade in 2025 is 55, which would make him 59th out of 81 linebackers. So, I mean, to be honest, 14 million plus to be in the bottom quarter of the league, I think you move on. I just think you move on. He's gotten worse ever since 2023. He had a really great 2023, and then he's been getting worse and worse. 27th in stops, 25th in sacks, 66th in missed tackles, 35th in passer rating allowed, 34th in total pressures, 1st in snaps, 5th in run defense snaps, 48th in pass rushing snaps, 1st in coverage snaps. Okay. So we're not rushing him on the passer, which is just a huge, egregious mistake. So if if you're putting me on the spot, I'm saying no to Bobby Okereke, and you just have to make that a priority in the draft. In terms of John Runyon, he has a 53.7 overall grade, 58th out of 80. So, whoa, look who looks like a freaking hypocrite now, Neal. It's funny that I would keep Runyon over Okereke, and they basically have the same kind of PFF grades. Like, Runyon's 58th out of 80 guards in overall grade. He's 59th out of 80 in pass block, 57th out of 80 in run block. So, could you do better? Probably. Not a lot of penalties. Hasn't allowed a lot of sacks. Has allowed. So I mean, yeah, I don't think anyone would be too butthurt if you let him walk. As long as you have a plan. Like, the plan has to be, if we're gonna move on from these guys, we have to identify top talent, and if that means drafting 2 guards in the upcoming draft, I'm fine with that. And if it means drafting 2 linebackers in this draft, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with drafting 2 guards and 2 linebackers in this upcoming draft. I have no problem with that. So that's the show. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And we'll talk to you next time. When that next time will be, not sure. I'm driving down to South Carolina for Thanksgiving this upcoming weekend. So hopefully I can watch or at least listen to the game on Sunday. And then, most likely won't be able to record. I mean, I can try to bring down the mic, but I just don't think I'll be able to record at all during that week. So you probably won't get an episode next week unless I'm able to record. I might have a movie review next week. I'm going to have one Thursday night, Superman. And then try to do a movie review for Fantastic Four First Steps that will probably get published next week. So no Giants next week, most likely. And then maybe do a little double header action on that following Monday or on that following Tuesday, because the Giants will be playing the New England Patriots on Monday Night Football. And then you have the bye week. So there's going to be a double header, twofer on that Tuesday, December 2nd. And then no Giants for a long time. And that's probably for the best. It's just it's my mental health is just absolutely deteriorating following this team. Deteriorating. And it's like I'm not getting paid for any of this. So it's like, maybe take a little inventory and stock on like what is important in life. The Giants are not important. And it's getting to the point where it's like, this is just dumb. This is dumb use of my time. Because if you're going to continue to make these stupid mistakes and make these dumb hires and continue down this road where it's like zero improvement, that's on me. It's like, you've fooled me enough times. This is now on me to break the habit, break the cycle, and stop my addiction. If there was a pill, I would take it. I'll say that. All right, that's enough. Talk to you next time. Adios, muchachos.